Good morning, I'm Heather Hiscox, and we lead off again this hour with the very latest out of Beijing. Canadian Michael Kovrig's secret trial is now over, but the uncertainty over his fate remains. It has been a dramatic day outside the court with scenes like these caught on camera.
The United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Estonia, Sweden, Denmark, Finland.
Again, just one of the moments captured outside the courthouse, a roll call of international diplomats who joined Canadians in a show of solidarity. 28 officials from 26 countries, all joining Jim Nicholl, the chargé d'affaires from the Canadian mission to Beijing. He is right there in the center, hat in his hands. Among those with him, one of the top U.S. diplomats in China, William Klein. He's the gentleman in the red scarf. He joined Nicholl in trying to get inside the courtroom. When they emerged, a Chinese official made a rare move, coming out with them to tell reporters why Kovrig's trial is happening in secret.
他们都是大使代理人。
开庭审理给大家一个答复。那么，根据《中华人民共和国刑事诉讼法》第188条规定
as you've heard from the court official, they are reconfirming what we have heard from the High Court. We are being denied that access. We've requested access to Michael Kovrig's hearing repeatedly, but that access is being denied. The reason that has been given to us why we are being denied access to our citizens facing trial is this is a so-called national security case.
Michael Kovrig is on trial for spying, a charge that could carry a life sentence. Chinese trials almost always lead to convictions. Kovrig's arrest, more than 2 years ago, happened shortly after Canada arrested Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou at the request of the United States. She's facing possible extradition there. Kovrig's detention and that of Michael Spavor are seen widely as retaliation for Meng's case. Now, new images just into us. There once again, Jim Nicholl outside the courthouse tonight, as it is in Beijing. He's giving a statement to journalists who've been there with him throughout the day and on into the evening. Patrick Falk is one of those reporters, and he leads off for us with the very latest.
The statement that was issued on the court's website said, the case against Michael Kovrig has been served. A verdict will be rendered in line with the law at a later date. So really, that is all that we know that happened today in the court in Beijing. We have no more information about what went on over the course of the proceedings, which lasted for much longer than one might have expected today, well over 10 hours from what it seems. But that's done nothing really to allay suspicions that this whole trial hearing, both for Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, was really a show, as many people suspect, that it was designed to give China leverage over the U.S. in talks that took place in Alaska. Now, Jim Nicholl had a very long day indeed today. He was there, of course, on Friday in Dandong and throughout the day here in Beijing, standing outside the court. He issued a statement reiterating the disappointment that Canada had at the lack of transparency and said that it was a very troubling state of affairs, that they had not been given access to the court and really not been given any information about what happened today either.
The scene outside that courthouse, quite extraordinary, Patrick, with the tape going up and police trying to keep reporters away. Can you just help us understand what it was like, describe what it was like at that courthouse today?
Well, it was very difficult to operate there, and the security personnel that were on hand were very deliberately trying to frustrate the work of journalists and not allow them to get on with their jobs. I should also mention that, this statement that was posted on the court website was apparently posted at around 6:30 p.m. local time, but it didn't say anything about when exactly the court case ended. It may have ended much earlier in the day, for all we know. There is so little to be said, and there was so little in that statement to read into. So again, it's very difficult to understand why exactly reporters were being were being herded around the way that they were, just trying to get on with their jobs, when in fact there was so little to see, or, you know, even at the end of the day, there was no opportunity, of course, to get a glimpse of Michael Kovrig.
And that scene from earlier in the day as well, when those 28 diplomats, Patrick, from 26 different countries walked to the courthouse, stood in solidarity with the Canadian diplomat, Jim Nichol. That moment and that message from the international community, what do you make of that?
Well, of course, it was designed to send a strong message to China, but China has hit back and accused Canada of getting these countries to band together, to point the finger at China's judicial system and point out its flaws. So it's not entirely been received as a strong message necessarily by China. And of course, there's been quite some talk now that there were no Asian democracies represented among the diplomats that were present today. And that perhaps says quite a lot about possibly the erosion of democratic values across the region, or it could quite simply be a case that it wasn't very well coordinated with countries within this region.
That is freelance reporter Patrick Falk in Beijing, and he has been following things hour by hour for us through the night. We'll be watching for further reaction from Ottawa and Canadian government officials here on CBC News Network. But I do want to play an excerpt from a conversation from earlier this morning. Guy Saint-Jacques is Canada's former ambassador to China. He held that job for 4 years, 2012 to 2016. As we spoke this morning, he condemned again what has been happening in Beijing.
It's this notion of secrecy and not knowing exactly how long the trial went on. Eventually, I think we will be able to get more information. I hope that Jim Nichol is able to meet with the lawyer of Mr. Kovrig, but I think this confirms that this was all preordained. What I find deplorable is that Michael Kovrig was not allowed to see the evidence against him, nor was his lawyer, and therefore it makes it very difficult for him to defend himself. But as I said, of course, this is highly political. I think it's another case where Beijing is just going through the motions, pretending that this is a fair trial. But I think what I found encouraging also was to see the large number of diplomats. And I think this is just the first step. And there, I assume that China must take stock of the opprobrium of the international community with regard to what's going on with regard to Michael Kovrig and Michael's favor.
That is Guy Saint-Jacques, again, Canada's former ambassador to China from Montreal this morning. I mentioned we would bring you government reaction, and indeed, as we've been speaking, there is a statement just out from Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister and from Global Affairs Canada. So this is from Marc Garneau. As part of what he says that his top priority is to secure the safe return to Canada of the two Michaels, how grateful he is to the international community. Here are three of the key paragraphs. We are deeply troubled by the total lack of transparency surrounding these hearings, and we continue to work towards an immediate end to their arbitrary detention. The use of arbitrary key again in that phrase. Canadian officials are seeking continued consular access to Mr. Kovrig and Mr. Spavor in accordance with the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations and the China-Canada Consular Agreement, and will continue to support these men and their families during this unacceptable ordeal. The eyes of the world are on these cases and proceedings, and I want to thank our international partners for their continued support and solidarity. Again, a reference